Okay. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna give you a little lesson on weak squares. It's kind of like a tricky thing that most people don't really understand. So
Yeah, no, when you said that in chat, I was kind of excited. I would like to work on that. That's cool.
so just gonna set up a position. So okay, so you can see the board, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So in this position, uh, which square would you consider weak for black?
For black, let's see.
So what's black's weakness?
Right. Um. Well, I guess that comes mostly from the pawns, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's only one defender on c6, and e6.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess d6 is really the weakest square
Okay. And why is that?
because it has no defenders. It's a backwards pawn.
Okay. And what about the square in front of it?
Oh, well, there's nothing attacking that besides the queen, I suppose. So that's pretty weak as well.
Right. So yeah, remember that weak squares come about from the pawn. So you don't really take into account the other pieces. But
O- Okay.
but yeah, the main weakness is the d5 square because uh, it's supported by white's pawn, but there's no black pawns on these two files that could contest it. So there's no pawn on c7 that can go c6. There's no pawn on e7 that can go e6. So there's no way for that knight to be chased away from its square. So it's a strong square for white, and it's a weak square for black.
Okay, so that's a really good outpost.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a good outpost for the knight, but more importantly, like even if this knight weren't here, I mean, the square would be weak because
Right.
white would be able to put whatever piece he wanted to on that square without fear of it being taken or it being chased away by a pawn. So
Mm-hmm.
the fact that he happens to have a knight on that square means that he has a large advantage. But the question is, okay, so it's clear that white's better here. But the question
Hmm.
is, how should white go about converting this advantage to a win? Because I mean, yes, his position is definitely superior, but the game hasn't won itself yet. I mean, the material is equal. So what should white do here? What should white's plan be?
Well, I guess if he didn't have a piece there, get something there. But after that,
Right. So yeah, he's basically already accomplished stage one of his objective, which was to get a piece on that square. So he already has a dominant knight, but that in itself won't win the game. So what can he do to further his prospects? So it's white's move here. So
hmm
what would you suggest for white?
um, I don't know. Involve some more pieces, I suppose.
That's a good idea. Okay, but first, notice that black is attacking one of our pawns.
Right.
So we should probably take time out to defend it. So
So I guess if the c2 pawn is weak, you could just advance it.
yep,
I don't know.
no,
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah, because now the pawn's defended, and now you're also taking the squares b4 and d4 away from black's pieces. Okay, so black plays b5 here, and now so black's trying to get some sort of queenside minority attack going. So he's going to try to play like a5 and b4 and try to disrupt white's pawn majority. Because right now white has 3 pawns,
hmm
black has 2. So white's going to try to, or black's going to try to exchange the pawns off to make a weakness on white's queenside. Okay, so what do you like for white here?
Mm, well, okay, if the queen is protecting c3, so do we want to stop c5 and do b4?
Okay, well, b4 is going to help black's plan, right? Because, like I said, black wants to play a5 and try to rip open files on the queen side. So by
Right. That.
b4, we're just
Okay.
promoting a5. And also notice that b4 is creating our own weak square. Now this square is weak. So now
Right.
black's pieces have a home on c4, and we're giving ourselves this backward pawn on c3. So you have to
Oh
make sure
yeah.
that
Okay.
you don't allow black to have some counterplay. So actually, the right move here is to play b3, which allows us to gain a tempo by chasing the queen away. But
Right.
also, once the queen moves away, say queen c6, okay, now whatever, say we make a move queen g3 or something. But now if he plays b4 ever, we can play c4 and lock it up, and that way we're not subjecting ourselves back anymore. Because the whole
Right.
idea of him playing these moves is to try to open up lines on the queen side, but we're able to pass through. Whereas if this pawn was on b2, and we tried to play c4, it would just be hanging. So
Right. Okay.
yeah. So okay. So b3, queen c5 check. Okay. So we move out of the way, and now black plays rook c8. Okay. So now the question is, now we've kind of stopped black's counterplay on the queen side temporarily. Also notice that like if black tries to play bishop a5 or something to get at this pawn, we have b4, which forks the queen and the bishop and wins a piece.
Right.
So that's another reason why the c3 b3 idea was good. So now, okay, so after rook c8, so now the question is, we stopped black's counterplay on the queen side. So uh, what's white's plan to kind of continue his attack or continue his decisive advantage?
The only should we involve the a1 rook? It's the only piece not in the game.
Yeah, we can, but there's another rook that we can involve that's a little bit faster.
All right. So let me find the other rook. I think I found it. F3 rook to F3.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
what's the point of rook to f3?
We're moving an attack onto the king side.
Right, exactly. And so part of the reason why this knight is so strong is because it's very difficult for black to get his queen back onto the king side. So normally black would try to go queen c7 and then try to go queen e7, but as you notice, both those squares are currently defended by the knight. So it's almost impossible for black to get his pieces over to the king side in time.
Right.
Whereas for white, it's very simple. We can just play rook f3, rook g3. We can indeed involve this rook if we want, rook 8 d1, rook d3, rook g3 as well. So
Mm.
so you have to notice that controlling that square in and of itself isn't winning the game for us. But what it's doing is it's kind of cutting off black's army, like it's cutting off black's army, the queen side to the king side. So it's allowing us to have more mobility in order to transfer pieces to the king side. So rook f3 is correct, and then black tries to get out of potential pin on the g file and play king to h8. So now that we've slowly gotten our pieces in position, how do we continue it?
Hmm. What about? I mean, queen h4.
And be careful. Don't forget about this bishop.
Oh yeah, right. um.
But you
Well,
do have the right idea, actually. You do have the
queen
right idea.
g3.
Just how can we interfere with that bishop's gaze on that diagonal?
Well, f6 messes up the king side, but we have to exchange off the good knight.
Well, don't assume that we have to recapture. So f6 is correct. But
Okay.
okay, so black plays pawn takes pawn. And now what do we do?
Well, then moving the queen in looks pretty quick. So
Right, exactly.
yeah.
So you had the right idea. You had the right idea. It's just you forgot about this bishop. But
Okay.
now that we've interfered with it, now we can play queen h4. And now we have a very simple idea of just playing rook h3 and mating on h7.
Right.
And it's very difficult to stop. So black basically finds the only move that stops imminent mate, which is rook g8. So his idea is he wants to play rook g7 and defend.
Uh huh.
So, I mean, white's clearly winning, but you have to make sure you conduct the end part Precisely, because if you don't, then black actually might have time to reorganize his defenses. Right now, he doesn't have
Right.
enough time, but if we make one or two, you know, inaccurate moves, black will have time. So how do we finish the game off?
Mm, knight takes f6.
Okay,
Doesn't look
good.
bad. Yeah.
So now we're threatening mate on h7, right?
Yeah.
And we're also
Mhm.
threatening the rook. I mean, indirectly. I mean, obviously it's pinned. So black moves his rook to g7 to defend the mate. Really, only move. So now what?
Then g3.
With
Rook
what?
g3. Sorry.
With what piece?
Rook g3.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Okay, so now we're threatening rook takes rook,
Hmm.
and mate will be forthcoming shortly. So black has to get rid of the knight.
Hmm.
So now what?
Queen takes bishop.
Yep.
Keeps a pin on the rook.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. So we're threatening mate on g7. So
Mhm.
black only has one defense. He has to defend the rook. So it's rook e8. Okay, so now, basically black's all tied up now. This rook is pinned. This rook is stuck to this rook. So now the question is, how do we finish it?
Hmm. Rook takes resolves the tension. Maybe. Mm, maybe rook h3 or
Okay, well, what does rook h3 threaten?
um. Well, it threatens the h7 pawn, but that takes too long and it's defended.
Right. Well, what piece of ours isn't quite doing something yet?
The rook on the a file.
Right. So which file should we move it to?
Um, well, an open file, D or F would make the most sense. F is music.
But which one's better?
Right. It's got to be the F file.
Okay. Well, I mean, rook f1 is good, but slightly more accurate is rook to d1 because
Yeah.
now we're still concentrating on this square, but more
Hmm.
importantly, we have an idea of just playing rook d3, rook takes rook, and rook dg3.
Right.
Whereas if we played rook f1, it would be possible for maybe black to play d5 and then queen f8 and try to defend that way. But
Oh,
now, with
okay.
our rook on d1, we're controlling that square. So after rook d1, black played d5 as desperation because he realized he was just going to get mated if he didn't.
Hmm.
And then how do we finish it off here?
Yeah, well, if rook takes rook and the queen come back in time, rook
Right.
takes rook, rook takes rook. Um, rook takes d5.
Right. So now I mean, a lot of moves win, but the idea
Right.
is that move order is crucial here. So try to
Hmm.
think about which move you should play first. So basically, the two candidate moves would be rook takes pawn or rook takes rook. So the question
Right.
is which one to play first.
I guess rook take rook makes more sense.
Okay. And then what's the idea?
Then the idea is he only has one rook, so then after rook takes d5,
Yep.
coming back,
Hmm?
coming down to d8
Yeah.
pins the
Exactly.
queen.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's exactly right. So rook takes rook is
Uh-huh.
slightly more accurate because if we play rook takes pawn first, black has queen f8. And okay, I
Yeah.
mean, we're still clearly winning, but there's no immediate win because if rook takes rook
Hmm.
instead of queen takes, or sorry, instead of rook takes, then rook d8, which transposes into what happened in the game,
Right.
he can actually play queen takes. And now,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, of course, white is still clearly winning, but now, we're gonna have to win some rook ending. So, so you're absolutely right that the right move is rook takes rook first, forcing rook takes rook, and now rook takes pawn, and now we're threatening this mate.
Right.
So he has to play queen f8 or something, and then we just win his queen, and then it's over. So black resigned. So the key thing to take away from this game is that one that this square is super weak, and white has full control over it with a knight, which is the best piece to have on that square. But more importantly, that in and of itself, this knight isn't winning white the game because there's not that many pieces on the board. So white had to open up the king side with f6, queen h4 in order to prevail. So
Hmm.
um, it's important to identify weak squares, but it's also important